Much more. So welcome people to a new Figma online event. Today we have a great team to cover design system. I think we had a lot of questions lately about the design system from certain people in our Designdicate group and also in the Figma Bosnian group. How to build a design system, what are design system, what benefits of design systems, and etc. And I think I had tried to cover every small part of building the design systems, how to build them, what design system needs to include, how to sell the design system in your company to your stakeholders, and at last but not least is basically how to include building design systems in your company as a design service and sell it as a one part of expertise in your design kind of services that you're offering. The whole kind of presentation is made with a partnership with the syndicate between Friends of Figma Bosnia and Herzegovina. I think this is the third one or second one event. I'm not quite sure, but it's not the last one. We have already built the next Figma event that is related to the how to build UI UX portfolios and how to take a leverage by applying for new jobs and how to make everything right and probably get the new job with that kind of tips and guidelines. My name is Rusmir Nautovic. I'm the Figma community advocate for our region, and hopefully in a certain time we will put an advert for new Figma community helpers, not community advocates, but they will have the similar kind of role that Figma community advocate has. So stay tuned. Design system. The main question for today team is basically a design system is a collection of design standards, guidelines, and tools that help teams design and build consistent, high quality products and digital experience. So, what we need to include in a design system. I think everybody has read a lot of different kind of blogs and posts, and I have tried to summarize the most important things and what they need to include and how they need to be there, and basically how they can help you to build your product in a better manner and time. So design system typically includes elements such as colors, palettes, typography, iconography, the interface components, basically. And there's a lot of different categories that we can split the interface components. The ones that are the buttons, forms, and navigation elements. There are certain kind of guidelines that people are using. I build my design system not based on atomic design, and I think everybody is already related to that term, atomic design. But why? Because every design system is basically built on an atomic kind of way. You have atoms, you have molecules, you have organism, you have templates. So basically all those interface components are already atoms and the rest of the atomic guidelines. So what is the main goal of building a design system? I think the goal of design system building is to create a shared understanding of design principles and how they will apply to a product or a brand, and to make it easier for teams to create consistent, cohesive user experience across different products and platforms. And I think the design system can be also implemented in many different ways, such as living document, a design library, an online tool, or a design language, which can contain many components, patterns, and examples. what it means when we say living documents. There's a lot of different kind of pages that you can have, where you can write your documentation, how to use a design system. You can use any external services like Zero Height and etc. Library is basically in a shared library inside your Figma account, organizations, workplace, or free Figma account. An online tool is basically an online tool that serves to maintain the whole kind of brand language, or brand components or product components that we use to build a different kind of products and different kind of products. And the language is basically everything what you see and what you get, is basically holding in one place all those things that you need to build the product. So there's always difference between the design system and the style guides, and I think most of you already know what is the difference. And sorry. And most people ask me what are the benefits of design system. We're building a design system. I will say there's a lot of them, and I just state the six most important. The one is improving the consistency of design across the different products and platforms, making it easier to create the new designs and features, because if you have everything in one place, then you can just drag and drop it and build the small wireframes and build the product faster and build the prototypes faster. Improving the communication and collaboration among the different teams by providing design languages. I'm sorry, I'm always switching between admit and speaking. By improving communication is basically what it meant is that everybody in your design team can be on the same page, so they can access to the same document, they can see, they can collaborate, they can decide what kind of components or different kind of design system can be included in the design system. So everybody can decide what we need to add mostly, or what we need to add as the next thing in the design system. The next thing is basically maintaining and updating the products over time, by providing a clear set of guidelines and best practices. So when you are halfway of building a design system, or by the time that you're building a design system, you can decide what kind of guidelines and practices you need to write. So everything is aligned, how to use the components, how to use the typography, the colors, where, when, and what needs to be used on a certain parts of the product. Improving accessibility. So basically, building the design system, the most important thing currently out there is taking care of accessibility. That means the colors needs to be matched or rightful choose for people who are probably visual impaired, and have problems with the contrast. And then the last one is basically improving the overall user experience by providing consistent designs approach. So basically what it means, if you build some components, then you can use them and reuse them over and over, and basically building more screens in a flow, you're maintaining the same kind of visual language. So you have the same spacings, you have the same typography, you have the same colors and that kind of stuff. So it means that the whole kind of overall user experience will be maintained by using the same things. How to set the design system? I think setting up the design system can be complex process, but there's a few general steps that we can take to get started. The first one is basically defining the scope of the design system. So what it means, you need to determine which kind of products do you build, what kind of platforms do you will be using by building the products, or the products, building the products. What kind of devices they will be used? Are you designing for Android? Are you designing for iOS? Are you designing for web app or whatever? And I think the next one is basically what you need to do is organizing existing design asset. That means collecting any existing design guidelines, style sheets, and design files that you currently have from previous work. That means sometimes we overtake jobs from different designers, from different agencies. especially since we're working and most of the companies and design agencies are switching to the Figma from Sketch or from Adobe XD. That means that all kind of files needs to be reworked. But in front to do that, you just need to organize everything and together the assets in one place. And based on that, you can just build a roadmap with which kind of part do you want to start first and how do you want to lay out all kind of new assets in the new design system. The next one is defining the design principles. That means identifying the key design principles that shall guide their design system, such like simplicity, accessibility, and consistency. Then we need to create a visual language. That means we need to define a set of colors, typography, iconography, and that will form the basis basically of the design system. So when I build a design system for our clients, I always split them, and I think everybody who worked already with the design system, we start with this kind of visual language. We define what typography will be used based on the brands, what kind of colors we will use, what kind of iconography we will use, depending what we're building. Are we building something that is most advanced, like a dashboarding? They're using different kind of icons. If we're building the native apps, then we will probably use the same kind of icons that we already have in our application. Sorry, in a I lost I lost me. Sorry. The next one is basically creating a set of reusable components. That means building a set of reusable components, such as buttons, forms, navigation elements, different kind of components that we will reuse over and over and over. What I love to do is basically building, besides the buttons, forms, and navigation elements, I also love to do like text blocks, different kind of form blocks, basically that will help me to build my prototypes or MVP faster. When I say text blocks, basically I always have one component that uh, contains like header, subheader, description, paragraph, body, and then I can switch it off through the variants depending on the use case. Uh, it helped us last year when we started to rebuild the old kind of design system for one of our clients, and that was really really helpful because I don't need to put every time a different kind of type fields and then change the styling of typography because I have already set those blocks. The next one is developing the guidelines and best practices. That means we need to write the documentation how we want to use a different kind of components, different kind of visual elements in our design system, and we basically need to establish a back practice for things like accessibility and performance. And then at the end, we basically need to document everything in a test. So what it means is we need to create a documentation for our design system that will describe how it works, how we want to use the design system, where we want to find the different components and resources. This is really very helpful for new designers who will onboard our team, and basically um, we're trying to cut the onboarding time with all kind of documentation that we have pre-written, and it will also help just to see how with the time how the design system will evolve and what is changed and what is improved with the time. And I think the communication and training is really really important because I mentioned already before, when new designers are coming, we need to communicate all kind of things about our design system, how we build them, what we have built, how we want to use it, when to use it. And I think also we need to communicate with the stakeholders, making sure they understand the whole kind of goals and principles of our design system. Uh, I think reviewing and maintaining is the ongoing process. Is basically every time when we improve our design system, or every time when we change or add something or delete something, we basically will go through the design system. We will review everything. This happens either on our design team meetings, on our weekly meetings, depending when the new components is add needs to be added, then we will go through the design system review and see if there's a need to add something or delete something or improve something. And I think this is really ongoing process every time when somebody is building a system. We have a new one. I think, as I mentioned already, the design system or implementation of design system is basically an ongoing process, and it will require ongoing maintenance and updating to ensure that design system stays relevant and useful for whole team or everybody in the team who is working with the design system. We already have mentioned a couple of things that design system needs to include, and I think I will start with the color palette. Elements that one color palette needs to contain. There's a lot of things that people are just throwing in a design system, like primary colors, neutral colors, complementary colors, grays, whites, success errors, and that kind of stuff. So what I love to do is I have similar approach, but I also have different kind of categories depending on the products that I want to use. The first one is the brand colors, and everybody who comes from graphic designs knows that when you start to work on something, you need to have a branding guideline book and all kind of just to read all kind of guidelines. What is the usage of a logo, how we want to use the logo, the all kind of brand colors, how they use, where to use, and that kind of stuff. And I think it's really, really important to have this kind of categories, because the main colors are always associated with your brand, and there's always rule like 60-30-10, depending what kind of products you're building and how do you want to use that kind of rule. Honestly, I don't use it often, but it's really helpful, because if you have a couple of colors, then to maintain that kind of ruling is really, really helpful. And I think I'm building, and I already spoke with Goran, I built or I designed one website for our needs, our company needs, and I think I have applied those rules basically using the 3 different kind of colors. And design can look really great with 3 different colors. I mean, besides white and black, why not? Neutral colors are basically the colors that can be used as a backgrounds, as a text, and other elements that needs to be neutral in order to draw attention to the main focus on the designs. And the examples of those colors are basically grays, whites, and black. Supporting colors or accent colors, most people are calling them like that, the colors that complement with the brand and neutral colors, and can be used to create a visual interest or different kind of hierarchy and emphasize different kind of stuffs. Those supporting colors can be also used to create the different moods and tones. I think supporting colors besides the different tints and shades, besides the primary color of one particular color, most people are using those tints and shades as supporting colors, and I use them always. So I build always from 100 to the 900, and I use the primary colors named always as a 600. I don't know why, but I read a ton of materials, and it's something that I'm used to do. But people also can name them in a different ways, how they like and how they fit to their kind of idea of the design system. The next one is accessibility colors, depending if you're building the light or dark team. They're there in a design system to ensure the accessibility of the design system. They ensure the visibility and readability of the designs for people who are visual impaired, providing them the high contrast between the text and background. Sometimes, like my presentations are always on a black background, and I use mostly white and Figma colors. Why? Because sometimes those presentations will be take in a live room on a screen or with a projector, and if you have a dark background, it's most likely that the high colors or like colors like white or different colors will be better readable. This is also comes from developers. If you see that most of their presentations have a dark or black backgrounds, they basically use the code on a dark background. I don't know why. Emphasize colors that they use for special emphasize, like for example, I think I mentioned this, using like success or danger or error states, and you can define which colors will be used for those kind of states. Gradients, depending on the products that we're building, sometimes we need also gradients, and using the gradients can be useful to create kind of depth and dimension and some kind of movement in design. I think gradients are also great for some transition screens like user flow or first time user experience, just to give a little bit more emotion. And then using also a blurry effect or some kind of glass effect, it can sorry it can have a great effect and great impact on your product. Pastel colors is not the must, but if you have those pastel colors defined in your design system, depending on the product, because sometimes design system cannot only be used for digital products. Pastel colors can also be used in the design system or built for marketing or brand design systems. I'm not quite sure if anybody is familiar with that, but for example, in my company where I worked, when I started to work 2 years ago, I built a marketing design system. And that kind of design system contains a lot of different stuff, and it's mostly directed for branding usage, like all kind of social media posts, all kind of print collateral and that kind of stuff. So I have everything in one place, and based on that design system, we build also different kind of templates for illustrators, for InDesigns, so it's easy for our graphic designer just to pick and go through or read through the documentation and then build the products that we need, or that is asked by the marketing. Typography. mm, I'm not good at typography, honestly. I have my set of different kind of scales. I always use 8-point grid, and based on that, I build my typography. But typography in a design system needs to contain several things that we need to pay attention, and this is mainly comes also from graphic designs. And I think everybody who build prints and different kind of publications uh, already knows how to set the scale of different headers, sizes, the paragraph sizes, the body sizes, and etc. And I think the typefaces are basically used to have consistency, to be consistent across all products and platforms. So you can define what are your headers, what are your bodies, captions, paragraphs, and based on that you can use them. If you build a native stuff, there's a lot of different design systems built by different community advocates who are basically have transferred the whole kind of material in Apple iOS guidelines and built based on their guidelines that they have built the whole kind of design system with already predefined colors, typographies, and the rest of the stuff. So type scale basically will ensure a consistent visual hierarchy and make it easier to create designs. The type scale is, as I mentioned, built from my side based on 8 pixel grid. My base font is always 16, and based on that, I build the rest of the sizes. So I always add multiply with the 8 pixels, and based on that build. And I think recently we had questions why people are using a bit big headers and big font sizes, just to emphasize and to make the designs a little bit more better and be in the trend. For the last year and this year, the big boldy fonts and type scales are also in the trends, and you will probably see more and more websites using a large type scales. Line spacing ensures that the text is easy to read and that there's enough space between lines. What it means, the spacing between two lines is something that help us to get the text better readable. So depending on a large device, small device, you will probably build the line spacing based on your type scale. So probably the type scale H1, if I use a 56, probably on the small devices will be 32, and the line spacing will vary it based on that type scale. So it's always based on 8-pixel grids. You can use different kind of grids. As I say, I recommend 8, and based on that, I build the line spacing 2. Somebody also used the multiply like 1.5. Somebody, depending, I mean, some developers and designers using pixels, some designers and developers using EM and RAM, and based on that is always a different kind of calculation. So the ladder spacing is something that ensured is also ensuring that the text has enough space between the letters, and that sometimes if the type scale is a little bit smaller, like 16, 18, then the letter space needs to be a little bit more there, just to ensure that the text is readable. If the letter spacing is like zero pixel, then all kind of letters will be stuck together, and depending on the typography that you're using, it can be really ugly, or look really ugly. So textiles are basically predefined textiles. I think I mentioned this before with my text blocks. You can define what are the headings, the body text, and captions, and then based on that, you can all just pick them and just build them. I think textiles are basically built based on all kind of type scales and letter spacing and line heights, and you can say, okay, my header H1 contains like type size 56, then you have 64, I don't know, line height, and the letter spacing is like +1, or you can have also line height in a percentage, like if you use 120 or 150, depending on the typography that you're using. I think building a typography and type scale and type styles is basically just a small playground, and just see how it fit better to your product and how the copy looks. I always use some provided copy just to see the whole kind of line heights and type scales, if it's okay or not. Text alignment, left, right, center, bottom. I mean, it will ensure that text is visually balanced, and it supports also intended 3D experience. I think we are used to read from left to right, and there's also different kind of rules, but this is stuck to the typography and use of typography in all kind of elements. It will not be covered this time. Internationalization, the hard word. It's a long word. Sometimes we were building a design system also for different kind of languages, and different kind of languages or usage of a different kind of typography or letters. Like you have different kind of letters. We have ch, ch, sh, j. It can also impact the designs. And if you're working with a multi language, then you basically just need to check how it works with all those presets that you have set up for your typography systems. And I think this is also one thing that can be considered as a playground. Iconography, honestly, I don't make them, I buy them. I don't have time for this, but there's a lot of different things that needs to be considered by building a iconography. I think there's a default sizes and default way of strokes, and how to build them with pads, without the pads, depending how do you want to use them. I think the one thing is by building an icon set, you just need to build everything that is related to your brand. So you can just take the icons that you have previously used and integrate them in your icon set. Then you need to consider, depending on the product what you're building, like if you're building a dashboarding, then you have probably 20 different icons that are mostly used in every dashboard. If you build some kind of different kind of products, like native products, then you have mostly things like a small set of icons that contains probably 10 icons, like left, right, for back and forward navigation, emailing stuff. Then you can bring the whole kind of different icons that you will use in your navigation sets and in headers and footers. Icon styles are depending what product you're building. You have lines, you have stroke, you have fill, you have gestalt, you have different kind of styles, but you need also to define uh, different behavior or different sizes for strokes, for colors, what kind of shape they will use. Then you have icon size. You have icon size that you need to consider. There's always rumor what starting icon size you need to take. Most of the icon set that you currently can buy out there, and the really good ones, they're using 24 pixels, so they're basically built on that kind of side. Every icon set is built in the icon system will use probably their own defined grids, and those grids help designers or icon designers or us self as a designers to build the icons and to maintain the whole kind of consistency and with the spacing in our icon set. When we are talking with icon spacing, yeah, icon spacing can be also related how the icon the drawn icon will behave inside the icon box, or also be related how to use them in order with different kind of elements like typography. For example, a button contains icon and a text, so what kind of spacing should be between them in order to have really to make them really legible for reading and also to be visual appealing. So you can define that, but mostly those things are related to the documentation, how to use, and to the principles. Icon variation, didn't have seen much of icon variation. The only thing where I see to be used is if you have icon buttons. That means if you simplify the component that contains the icon and copy uh, and just make a variation of that component, just throw out the text out, then you will have the same kind of button designed, and it will be probably round and just contain the icons. Those variation can be considered to make like hover states, active states, and disable states, and the rest of states that you will also use on the buttons. Icon variations can also be considered for different kind of usages, like different kind of sizes of icon. So if you have like large, small, and medium, and can also be considered as a variation. Documentation, as I mentioned at the beginning, everything that you are doing by building your icons, you need to document in order for the rest of the teams to be always informed, and also for the new designers who will on board, just to know next time if there's a request from the product owners or product managers to build a new set icons or additional icons, just to know how to build them. Accessibility, I think the most important thing is if you use the icon buttons just to provide the whole kind of high contrast versions and to allow those icon buttons or icons variation sets or sets, whatever, to be good readable and good good applicable to the rest of the designs that you're using. I think accessibility is really most important thing, and it's always repetitive. It's something that we as a designers need to take care really carefully and just pay attention, because there's a lot of people who are really visual impaired, and I'm not self-visual impaired, but with the times I just see the different kind of colors that I used previously. They're just I'm not say transparent, but they just seems for me wash out, and I'm a purple color fan, so mostly what I see is when my clothes is washed out, then I see that I have a problems with my eyes, and just see the full brightness of the colors. But yeah, interface components. There's a lot of things that you can include in interface components. If you have built a design system, then you know it's not just buttons and all those small stuffs. We can split interface components in different categories. The one of them are the reusable icon UI components. And I just put everything inside this category as a buttons, forms, navigation elements, and much more. And they can be used consistently across all our products and platforms. Those components should be easy to use. They need to be easy to understand and also appropriate to our brand and intent to use. The component styles, I think the set of those guidelines needs to be defined how we want to create interface components in order to be consistent and overall visual aesthetics of our design system. Uh, Including that or writing that, basically we need to do some writing and just define how the layout will be there, how the spacing will be used, how the colors will be used. And this is really helpful if you have a large products with a lot of different screens, and to maintain that kind of consistency you can define everything. And I always include in my design system like one page that called grids and layouts. And what it means, I have already predefined grids with all those spacings and all those things that I will build, uh, that I need to build my product. So basically, the grids are already defined for building the websites, for building like iOS devices, designed for iOS devices or for Android devices. So I already know what is my spacing left and right between the columns, how much columns do I want to use. So it's really helpful to make to have that prepared in your design system, because it's really easy to align all kind of small components and icons and all other design elements in your design. Component behavior, you need to have a set of guidelines for interface components, how they should behave. That means how they respond to user interaction, how they should be animated, and how they did. I mean, the whole kind of transition, how it should behave between the screens. And this will help also our developers when we hand off the designs, just to know them. We can always make a small kind of prototypes and use all those behaviors in our prototypes and help them to build the product faster without any further questions. But questions are always welcome. So it's definitely something that will help them to build faster and have a little bit less questions, I will say. Accessibility, set of guidelines and best practice for making interface components. Accessibility, depending if you use the components on light background, dark background, depending on the themes. Uh, Providing a different kind of text alternatives. And I think that kind of text components can be really useful for that, because you can make a set and you can just try how it behaves in your design and what best fits for your designs. And the most important thing, you will always keep the consistency with the spacing and alignment. Interaction patterns, this is really nice. I built a lot of different micro interactions and interactions files, and I think the one of my micro interactions file was nominated for the Figma Community Award. It didn't get the award. The another one, educational resource for the FigJam, won that kind of award. But micro interaction is something that I really love to do. You can write all kind of guidelines how the different components will behave depending on a small patterns, like what happens if you click on something and the modals is pop up, what happens when you have different kind of switch cursors, how it behaves between switching the tabs, what happens if you click successful, if you have something paid, and that kind of fireworks, and then your success state comes. So it's really helped to build that, because small interaction or micro interactions are really something that bring the product to the life. And if you have those rule, if you have a set of rules and guidelines and everything, it will also help the developers to build those things better without further explaining. Loading arrow states, you can have them, you don't need them. Building every kind of inputs or different kind of small components, you will probably have all kind of arrow states already include. and you can use them as a different kind of variants on your existing components. Loading screens are not just something that say us, okay, this is it takes too long, or there's an error, there's a lot of empty states. What happens if the data is not loaded? How do you want to present that kind of screen a little bit more appealing for the user, and just let him know, okay, something is happening, please bear with us, it's a internet error, Wi-Fi error, there's something with our database. So those states can also be included and designed in front, and not just have a screen and a user in front of your screen and in front of your product that just says wait or something. So you can define all those loading scenario states inside. This particular part will be used definitely on a large scale, on larger products where you have different kind of API probably connections, loading the data from the database, like dashboarding, probably. And I have them inside. I mean, I can share after the call also the list of all kind of components that I use and have in my design system. Micro interactions, I think I mentioned this also related to the interaction patterns. Everything what is engaging, everything what brings the experience to the higher level can also be included. Also helps the developers to build it. Also helps the stakeholders and product owners to understand the product probably better, presenting them through the prototypes and small MVPs, and just to see how something happens, and that design is not just boring, can also be appealing and interacting, and how what I'd say, I won't say helpful, but probably, yeah, it can also be helpful for some users to understand what happened next. If you have a successful screen and then tada, happens something, and the next step is probably go back to the first screen and just let user probably buy something or interact with other parts of your product. Responsive designs. This is something that we can also build in our design system. That means, depending on the product, if we have a multi product that is basically used on different platforms like webs, small tablet screens, mobile devices, you can just write all kind of set and rules how different components and different stylings and different different stylings, different components, and the whole kind of design and look should behave. You can also define in front with your grids in the styling how you want to design and how you want to play with the spacing, just to have design everywhere on the same track. Principle and guidelines. This is the boring job. I don't like it. I write documentation probably for 7 months for our marketing design system. Just let me take a sip. Sorry. It's still cold. I don't know why. There's a lot of examples how we want to write and what we need to include from the side of documentation and the guidelines. I think the first one is basically design principles that we need to write, and that means there's overarching design principles that guide the whole kind of design system, and they're like split in several parts, like simplicity, the whole kind of accessibility, the consistency, the usability of the product. And I think those principles should be used to inform all designs decision and ensure that the design system supports the overall goals and vision of the organization by building the products or by starting to build the products. The next one is the brand guidelines. So we have already mentioned different kind of style guides that we have used before, and design system use them also. depending on the product and depending on the company. Like for example, we have a one client that we have a work last year, and it's a huge organization with different kind of workspaces and organization spaces in a Figma. And what it means that, for example, they have a brand division and they have like digital product division and different kind of designs team, and they came to the same conclusion that they want to have a one single source of truth, basically using the whole kind of default brand guidelines in all their product. That means that they want a one workspace that just contain the brand guidelines and the whole kind of usage of the brand, like colors, typography, the iconography, and they wanted to have all those three things implemented across all their products. It's not just like digital products, but using also in the marketing and in the whole kind of visual language that comes out at the end. And they have also included the whole kind of mission and vision and values of the brand, the whole kind of tone and voices, and it's really helpful just for the people to understand what is the product about, how you want to communicate, because every designers who start to make the product will ask their probably stakeholders or their clients about those questions, and in order to understand how to build a product better and how to solve the problem of our clients and how to communicate to the end users better. So I think including those brand guidelines is really, really helpful for the whole kind of team and for the rest of the teams who will reuse the design system. The visual guidelines, they're defining the visual kind of aesthetics of the design system and usage of all kind of colors, typography, iconography. Uh, it, I mean, the whole kind of idea behind the documentation and guiding principles and using or writing those things is basically uh, the first one is to maintain the consistency. The second one is just to help to understand how the product is built, and then to keep again though that kind of consistency overall, because if the people doesn't know how to use something, they can always go and read. And if I don't know how to use something, I can either ask the design ops, and I think we in the previous session we have spoke about the design ops, and we can ask the manager who maintain the design system how some things are used. But keeping the guidelines and documentation in one place, it really helps to create the whole kind of consistency and cohesive visual aesthetics across all the different products, and the design system will be flawless. I mean, I mentioned that at the beginning, is always ongoing process by doing, iterating, reiterating, deleting, improving, updating, but keeping that on a one place is really, really, it's really, really helpful. And it also will help the developers just to go and then read the documentation, and if the documentation is really, really good, really made well in collaboration with the developers, then you can also include the whole kind of small code snippets that will help the new developers who are joining the company to use and to work faster and to understand the product faster. Interaction guidelines, I think everything is related to the small bits and parts that we mentioned before. Um, Mostly those interaction guidelines will be written either by our designers or motion designers who will work on the things depending what kind of interaction it will be used. If we're using the micro interaction, then probably if we set the prototypes and if we use those small interaction in the prototypes before we show them, we will iterate on them and just to see the whole kind of things that we need to consider, like what is the transition, what is the speed, how does the small bits and parts behavior, and then documented everything, and then just transfer that kind of knowledge to the rest of the crew, and we can help in order to build better products by communicating the right away to our developers, and they will know what kind of speed of animation they will be used, where certain elements are going left to the right, if we have a swipe or click in that kind of interaction. So if you write everything how our design is working, then they can work really, really fast and well. Accessibility guidelines. Bye bye. Accessibility guidelines. I think everything what we mentioned before is just write everything. I mean, you need to create guidelines who are related to accessibility and inclusive design, providing all kind of different text alternatives, high contrast versions. So everything what we already have designed in our design system and follow all those rules by building a design system are basically needs to be transferred to the paper or be documented for the rest of the crew. So it's just ongoing process like performance guidelines. What are the best practices for optimizing performance of our design system, like minimizing usage of heavy assets and ensuring fast load times. That means by maintaining and reviewing the design system, how we want to take care of our design system, and what kind of timeline do we want to go to review, to delete necessary things or archive necessary things. Because for sure, I can from my experience say if Figma has probably 50 different pages and I'm not quite sure how many flows and design screens inside every page, that Figma file will be crashed. So this is also related to the design system. If you have a heavy overload of different components, like for example, I think there was a one file with the different button variations in the community. It had probably more than 11,000 different variations, and that file worked. But imagine, why do you want to have a different 11,000 variation of our buttons? We don't need them. But it was just a test. But that means that performance of a design system needs to be taken care. And just with regular maintenance and reviewing, you can maintain that performance is really really good. Content guidelines, you can have them. It's not the must have. It's something related also to the brand guidelines and brand style guides. It helps for the UX copywriters just to know how we want to communicate the different messaging, how we want to use a different kind of images, or if you want to use videos and illustration, what type and what kind of direction we need to go and consider. So it helps really to build a product if you know everything, or if you see everything documented, and it will help you next time somebody asks you to build something like new illustration, whatever, then upfront you know, okay, those are the guidelines, those are the colors, those are the strokes, and everything that we need to use on the lines. And it's really helpful to have them. Responsive design guidelines, you can have them. You don't need them. I mean, you have already built the grids and parts of the design system that communicates the whole kind of responsiveness. But as I say, you can just write everything in order to help the rest of the team or the new people who are joining to your team and will use that kind of design system. Because, I mean, if you're building the websites, different kind of responsive responsiveness is different. I use 1140, with somebody use more like 1920, and I see yesterday in the page that you use 2560 pixel width. It's basically in the full screen. So if depending on your product and depending on the way how you build the sites and how you use and ask also from the client side, then you can write those guidelines, and upfront you will know, okay, this every time when you build for this kind of client, he wants to use this, and he has uh, a love for this kind of width or height or position of elements. uh, Everything that we have spoke about the guidelines and the principles is they need to be understandable and easy, really easy, because developers, designers, stakeholders, especially stakeholders and product owners, doesn't like to read too much. So you need to be consistent. You need to be short in your lines when you describe something, but also it needs to be informative for the rest of the crew who is building the product, and to easily understand what you have tried to tell them or to describe them. All those guidelines as a design system needs to be from time to time reviewed, updated, and also maintained regular. It will ensure, again, and this is underlined, it's ensure that design system will still be relevant and useful for the whole kind of organization. And this is the most important thing of the design system, because when I talk with my people and the rest of the crews in different kind of companies, why is design system really a must have and by building the products, and what are the benefits and what you can get from having a design system, is that convincing someone the design system is necessary is really really challenging, especially if they're not familiar with the concept of the design system and they are not convinced of its value. And I think some approaches that you can take on and convincing somebody that they need a design system are showing them the benefit of the design system. That means demonstrating the specific benefits that a design system can provide, such improved consistency, faster development time, better user experience. And I think if you get hooked them on the first time, showing them the benefits, they will just start to listen, and then you can take to the next one, is basically highlighting the current problem. So what's happening if you have a one file that is not made with the components, if you have a one page and everything is thrown in that page, and 10 different designers are working on that page, and everybody's changing and there's no documentation who changed something, who approved the change, and what are the new components or new styles or whatever. And this brings basically to the inconsistency in the design, and it slows the development teams, it slows us, it slows the collaboration and communication between the product owners and the designers, and at the end you have a really really poor user experience. And in order to convince them, depending who you're convincing that design system is needed in a company, mostly are the stakeholders, and involving stakeholders from different teams and departments in the process of creating of the design system will really really ensure uh, what are the benefits. That means if you start to build a design system, then you can just sit with them and ask them what are the needs of our products, what do we want to achieve, speediness in design, speediness in development. Then you can take a meeting with the developers, how we want to build that, what is the best approach, what kind of framework do we use for this kind of clients and products, do what we need to consider by building a design system, what are the errors and the fails or the cons that we have experienced by building a previous product, so what we can make better and easy for us to have fast-paced production. And I think Goran already has a talk about the phase production. Yeah, sorry. I mean, it was a long day. It was a long day. Then making it easy to understand. So basically, you need to convince them that the concept of the design system is really easy to understand, and you need to provide a clear explanation and examples. You don't need to talk with your jargon and show the technical items, but I think making a concept of the design system is basically you just have you can just make a small presentation and just tell them, okay, those are the problems that we have before, those are the cons that we will have in the future, and this is the return of investment by building a design system. And I think communicating that value is basically what will convince them that they need a design system, because it will improve the efficiency, it will save the costs, it will have a better user experience. We have more consistency across the products. We will have a cohesive user experience, and I think those are the things that everybody, if heard, especially if you have cost saving, they will be hooked on definitely. And as I mentioned, showing them the return of investment is basically providing them that data and probably upfront you cannot provide the data on a cost saving efficiency, but surfing and reading different blogs and speaking with a different kind of teams across the IT industry and different design agency, and gathering that data, you can reuse them and just show them, okay, this company made cost savings like this and this and this. We don't pay accounts for that and that, and everybody collaborated in one place. So we have a last meetings. We can collaborate through the one file, especially with the Figma. Figma has different ways of collaboration, either through the FigJam, either through the voice chat, and those things are basically cost saving. You don't need to make a different meetings, gather people. Everybody who has the time can jump in a file and just collaborate with that. That's the one thing. Efficiency is basically that through the FigJam and through the in-file and voice audio, everybody can talk. We can vote on different things, and we can be efficient. We don't need to send emails. What you think about? Everybody can just take their opinion and write their opinion. So I think those things are basically the return of investment. Why we need the design system, and most important, why we need the collaboration by building them. And you can lead by examples. You can show him different role models, different design systems. They're out there. A lot of people are trying to mimic or to use either Atlassian and the Netflix, the Uber, then IBM. I think I'll use IBM. And showing them and what are the benefits by building by large companies who build the design system, and what is their ROI and what is their collaboration, will probably convince them. At the end, they can just say no, but you can be persistent. I had a talk with one of my colleagues, not from Bosnia, outside, and he was really persistent with their company, trying to sell the design system to them, and not just the design system. Firstly, trying to sell switch from Sketch to the Figma, and what are the benefits. And then we had meetings, and we show them everything, and then we show him the design system and how the production was really fast. He basically asked us, can you build the user flow based on a components? And we told him yes. We just drag and drop everything from the assets panel and build that kind of product in the 10 minutes. And he was really convinced at the end. But you need to demonstrate the values. If they don't see the values, and especially the money, they will not probably approve the building design system, but you can do it either. So you don't need to ask them. I mean, either you're working and having everything in one file and not componentized and not stylized is the same thing, but having a design system, it helps you really to build the products faster and faster. And I think the most important thing at the end is really, it needs to be clearly communicated, the whole kind of value, what it can bring to the organization, providing specific examples to them, and just let them sit overnight and decide probably next morning if they want to go or not. And I think that the one of the important things is showing them and convincing them what are the benefits, is telling them, okay, we need this and this or that kind of amount of the time to build this, and then reworked everything in the start. I give you an example. I'm speaking always about the company because I have a lot of experience with the design system and design ops. When we took one of our biggest clients from one of design agencies, this design agency come from San Francisco. They worked everything with a Sketch. So every page, every flow was in a Sketch. And so imagine there were no symbols, there were no styles, there were no guides, no documentation, because they had only one designer who maintained the whole kind of product. And this was a multi-brand product or multi-device product, call it whatever. So when we took over that kind of job, so the next step was to go through the assets just to see everything, what they built, how they built, how they have set every of those things that we mentioned before, like typography, colors, all kind of components. Are there components in all design system? And there was zero. There was zero. That everything was in one file, one page. So we told them we will write the documentation, we will go through the assets, we will do the review, probably 2 weeks. We did it. We wrote everything. What are the benefits of the new thing? How it will take us to build a new design system, and at the end, how it long will take us to redesign everything from the old sketch files to the new Figma files. That means that building the whole kind of design ops organizations for the files. So every product has their own workspace, on their page, on their team. Every floor has their own file. So imagine there was probably 64 different pages, flows, and etc., etc. It took us probably 6 months, and we finished that job for the 3 months. So the benefit was that we have a really, really great team, and everybody who worked on that client took specific part of a design system, and with a collaboration, with the daily syncs and meetings through the file, through the audio chat and FigJam and whatever, we finished that in 3 months. So that was really, really success. And this is basically the one examples that I always try to communicate with our new clients when we try to sell design system as an expertise or as a service. And when I say selling design system, so everything what we have talked in the past 1 hour brings you to this part, how to sell it. And selling a design system as a service is really challenging task, especially if the potential clients are not familiar. And it's the same thing with the stakeholders, how to convince them. If they're not familiar, what are the benefits, what they get? It's the same with the clients. How I want to try to sell something, I can put it in my design services and say, okay, in my design service, I have different expertise. The one of them is the design system. The second one is UI, UI design, UX writing, whatever. And if I try to sell it, then I need really to have the same kind of approach that I have used by building the design system, and also used by convincing the stakeholders and the rest of the team in a company to use the design system. And again, you need to highlight the benefits. So you need to clearly communicate what are the benefits. Same thing, improve consistency, faster development time, better user experience. The next one, showing our expertise. So showing our expertise is the thing that I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, is basically speaking you how we took over something from our clients, what is the end results, what time we needed for that, what is the end result of basically building and transferring everything on a design system, and regenerating all kind of files with the new design system. Tailoring our approach is basically specific need depending on the client. Every client is different. We need to understand their business objectives and the challenges that are facing. Are they need design system, or maybe they need style guides, probably for their brand. So probably they're not building anything big as a product. And this is that I mentioned, the marketing design system is really, really helpful. The one of the ROIs using our design marketing system is that our production is faster by 25%. That means if the marketing has asked for something, every designer in my team just go to the library, pick what they need, post Instagram, brochure, print, depending on the size that they're using. We have a set the guidelines and all kind of stuff that needs to be done, the grids, the layouts, the spacing, the position of the logo. So there's no need to experiment with position of different elements. Then depending on the usage, they can just go to design system and pick that, change the colors, change the images, change the copy, and just deliver probably in 5 minutes to the marketing. So that helps you really to have a fast production. And as I mentioned, every client is different and has a different needs. Communicating the value is the same that we had before. What are the cost savings? They have probably better user experience. emphasizing that the design system will help them to create more consistent, cohesive user experience. And everybody, when every client that hears, okay, great user experience, and this is our job to make the best of. And if they hear that, they will probably say, okay, yes, maybe no. But depending on them, you need to be really good in your job and really to state all kind of benefits why they need something. The final words of today's event are conclusion. Design system are a valuable tool for organization looking to improve consistency, efficiency, and overall user experience. It is important to involve stakeholders, clearly communicate the benefits of a design system, not just the stakeholders, also developers, product owners, product managers, marketing, I don't know, depending what we're building for the design system or what we want to include in the design system. To sell it as a service, it's really important to demonstrate our expertise, tailor our approach to the specific needs of the client. As I mentioned, every client is different, has different kind of needs. Well-designed and well-implemented design system can save us time and resources, improve the user experience, ultimately help organizations to achieve their goals. And at the end, there's a lot of resources that I built in the page, so you can just go and see. Figma has a really great resources and a lot of different video events that they already held based on the design system. There's I think the one series of 5 videos how they build a design system. The first one is with Raji. It starts with all small things, typography, colors, and then how to apply all those things on a component. Design system publication by Figma, great website. It's also related to the schema. Schema is design system event made by Figma. I think the first schema was last year. Shame on me if it was last year. A lot of resources, how to start the design system, the ultimate design system resource list. It helps you to get everything on one page, what needs to be included in the design system. It's really helpful. And collection of design system example articles, tools, and talks. So everything what is helpful for us to build design system, to build a whole kind of documentation, the promo pitch to the stakeholders and clients to convince them, and selling a design system as an expertise. And open source checklist is the same and similar thing. With all those things, what needs to be included in a design system. There's a lot of pages also related to different components that are basically describing what is the usage of input box, I don't know, accordion, and that kind of stuff. So you don't need to invent the description that you need in your documentation guidelines. You can go to those pages and just copy and paste it, and it will help you basically to understand what are the needs. And every of those components have different variants, different usage. So based on a small description, you can build basically your documentation more and more and more. So I will say thank you. Thank you for listening and for being today with me. I will stop sharing. Let me see if there's any question. If anybody has a question, just raise your hand. I will unmute you. I hope this was really helpful for you today. For me, it was really enjoyable. I love to talk about Figma and design and everything. Anybody? No? Yep, the video will be on YouTube later. So I'm sorry to see you leaving. We have 11 guests. Thank you, guys. Thank you, people. Let me just stop this one.